As many of you may know, Christchurch, New Zealand was hit by major earthquakes last year. The first, in September 2010, measured 7.1, and an aftershock measuring 6.3 came in February 2011 that killed nearly 200 people. Thousands of small aftershocks have followed since, and there is still a chance that another large aftershock could happen. The most damage took place in the central business district, which has been closed and fenced off since February. A majority of the buildings in city center will have to be torn down, and it will likely be years before things return to any semblance of what they were. Locals joke about how the city has become a donut, a hole surrounded by suburbs. They also joke about Christchurch's very own Leaning Tower, a hotel now listing by a few meters to the right. The famous Christchurch Cathedral is an easy symbol of the lasting damage the city has suffered. The spire collapsed in the February earthquake and the front rose window fell in during an aftershock in June. The cathedral is nearly unrecognizable today, merely an ugly hole can be seen through the red zone fence. Only the fence retains some of the city's heart, covered in signs of encouragement and memorials to those who lost their lives. Around the city, remnants of historic buildings in various states of collapse or demolition are a common sight. Churches and charming old stone buildings that served as centers for art and community life were the hardest hit. Cracks in the road and other signs of damage in the ground are everywhere. Many doors and windows are still marked with spray paint left from search and rescue teams from the February earthquake. Silt, which emerges out of the ground during earthquakes in a process called liquefaction, can still be found on the floors of deserted buildings. This silt was responsible for much of the property damage from earthquakes, rising through the floors of people's homes and flooding streets. Perhaps the most eerie part of living in a post-earthquake city are the reminders everywhere of how sudden and jarring the damage was. Everywhere you look, it feels as though you're intruding on someone else's pain. It is clear to me that no matter how long I live here, I will never be able to understand what it was like to see your home ripped apart and not know if your loved ones are alive. Houses are ripped open, exposing the lives of people who have clearly left their homes behind. Thousands of people, as much as 10% of the city's population, have left Christchurch in the last year, and thousands more have lost homes and businesses. Empty lots where buildings once stood are found on every block. But just as there are signs of destruction everywhere, there are also signs of hope. From the hills above the city, the damage is barely visible, and it is clear that life goes on. Tragedy has brought the people of Christchurch together and given them a chance to create a better future for their city. One organization called Gap Filler takes empty lots where buildings have been demolished and fills them with public art spaces. On the anniversary of the first earthquake, 2 beams of light were lit in the dark city center, bringing hope into the night sky. Many of the city's most important sites remain, including the gardens that give Christchurch its nickname. The color of the flowers and the serenity of the paths are untouched by earthquakes. The sight of children laughing and old couples strolling happily so close to city center shows the resilience of people and community. Signs of recovery are clear now, 8 months after the worst earthquake. The Rugby World Cup was coincidentally held in New Zealand this year, and in some small way the team's glorious win, the first in 24 years, helped the community heal from the earthquakes. It was the first time since moving here I've seen so many people out and smiling. It was clear the win meant a lot when the team brought the World Cup home in a parade. Even more exciting was when a few blocks of the previously closed city center were opened at the end of October. This allowed people to see part of the downtown for the first time since the quake and realize that there is, and will continue to be, life in the city center again. The Prime Minister was there showing just what a big day this was on the road to recovery. So Christchurch will heal. It will take years and it will never be the same, but the faith and perseverance I've seen here are astounding. Kiwis always ask me why I chose to come to Christchurch of all places, but I'm so thankful to have studied abroad somewhere that has shown me so much about people. Tragedy teaches you about empathy, understanding someone else's pain as if it is your own. Living here has taught me that empathy is at the heart of all good human impulses: help, compassion, love. When we see destruction on the news, we're so detached that we don't experience empathy. By telling this story to the best of my ability, I hope to help others understand what has happened here so they too can be inspired by the courage, resilience, humility, and hope the people of Christchurch have taught me.